Video from the second half of my trip to Bali, Indonesia in July 2018. This is the Nusa Lembongan portion. Nusa is one of three islands that's right off the coast of Bali, and they're separated by small channels. Because of these channels, they are very tide dependent, and the currents can be absolutely massive. This is an advanced site called the Blue Corner. The guide was super thrilled that I was experienced because he got to go here with me, and he would only take people with, several hundred dives. This is the fastest I have ever moved underwater. The guide estimated that there was at least a 4-knot current. I've dove Cozumel a couple of times and have done plenty of drift dives. This is easily 2 or 3 times faster. None of that footage was sped up whatsoever. One of the things that was pretty impressive about Nusa Lembongan was that the coral seemed to be quite healthy, especially compared to the Caribbean diving that I had done in the past. It's really nice to see just the variety, some of these gigantic plates, the brain corals, all sorts of different species. That was really quite beautiful. Nusa is also known as the place where there's both manta rays and mola mola, depending on the season. This is kind of interesting because this actually shows the transition of soft coral. So this was a coral rubble pile, and there's 2 different varieties of soft coral. One acts as a pioneer species, the other grows later on. Here's a banded sea snake that I saw. Saw 2 different sea snakes, and this was my first time. Again, just a view of the coral rubble patch with the new soft coral pioneer species that are growing on top of it. Very, very cool to see. This was a peacock mantis shrimp. The flora and fauna is fairly similar to the Philippines, which makes sense since Bali is basically dead south of the Philippines. It's also directly north of the western portion of Australia. These are small catfish that would feed in schools. They sort of tumble over each other by sticking their face in the sand, eating some, and then moving to the top of the line as they roll over the sand bed. These are one of my favorite goatfish. I love the little barbells that they have under their chin as they pat the sand looking for food. I think it's so cute. Now we get into some of the nudibranch species. This is a Chromodoros magnifica. If you look, its left rhinophore, to our right, is branched. There's something wrong with it. That's not too uncommon to see nudibranchs with some damage or modification to their rhinophores. These are so pretty. The variety of nudibranchs wasn't quite as great as it was up in the Ahmed Tumbalan area of Bali proper. That's more muck diving. This is much more reef diving. But still, there were quite a few, and they were quite beautiful. This, I believe, is a Philodila. There were many of these sort of bumpy, rocky nudibranchs. It's kind of hard to see where their rhinophores are. I think that the yellow, blue, and black species like this one are stunning. If you pay real close attention, you can see the rhinophores facing directly at me in this shot. You'll have to forgive the shakiness of the video. Almost every single one of the dives is a drift dive, so if I'm trying to get macro shot of a nudibranch, I've got my reef stick stuck into some rock or some barren patch of gravel, and I'm holding on against the current while I'm trying to take video. There were also sea turtles absolutely everywhere, which I'm always happy if I see a sea turtle on a dive, and they were not shy. I'm not swimming towards this sea turtle. This sea turtle, as you can see, is swimming towards me. The guides had said that they were mostly hawksbill sea turtles. There might have been 1 or 2 green sea turtles as well. Whatever species they were all over the place, and they were super friendly, which is always awesome in my book. You could get as close as you want, sometimes closer than you wanted because they ended up swimming towards you. There were also a variety of tropical reef fish, various triggerfish like you see here. This, I believe, is a clown triggerfish, and it was found in Crystal Bay, which is one of the few sort of protected dive sites in this area that really didn't have much in the way of currents. There were also a ton of different pufferfish. This particular blue one was gorgeous. Some of them, though, were gargantuan. Here, for example, is a pufferfish that was probably a good 2.5 feet long. It was tucked in behind a coral head on one of our drift dives. Like I said, most of these are drift dives, so there's a current just about everywhere. It's always good to look behind outcroppings, look anywhere that a fish could rest, because you're likely to see something large or interesting as it tries to get out of the current. Here's a small juvenile lionfish. Unlike the lionfish in Florida, this is actually where they're from, so it's exciting to see a lionfish here. My favorite, of course, were the clownfish. As you can see, they are a plucky, angry, territorial fish. And I wanted to take a bunch of different video to show the diversity of clownfish. There's all sorts of species and all sorts of different anemones that they live in. I also wanted to demonstrate why it's so hard to get a really good photo of a clownfish. Because as you can see here with this skunk clownfish, so named for the stripe on the top of its head, they dart in and out of the tentacles of the anemone that they live in. So just trying to get a good shot is all but impossible. I mean, just look at the colors of this anemone. Fun fact about clownfish, they're all actually born male, and as they mature to female, sort of the reverse of a sheep's head in Southern California. So technically, if Finding Nemo was correct, Marlin would have turned into a female, and Nemo would have mated with him after the mother and eggs were originally lost. But, Disney takes some license with nature. And here you can see, again, a different species of clownfish in a bubble anemone. These are stunning to take photos of because the bubble anemone itself is somewhat translucent and will glow with your strobe lights. I love these things, and again, it was a drift dive, so I'd have to try to park myself to try to stabilize video. Just more shots of clownfish to show the variety. They are absolutely beautiful, and they live in these family groups. I didn't see any eggs, else I would have tried to get some shots of the eggs. Here's a tube worm in a coral head. These are also, of course, very, very pretty. And this was a giant clam. Overall, it was a great set of dives. It was really wonderful to see how healthy the reef was.